Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Adam Smith is one of the first names you'll hear if you study history, economics, politics, sociology, or philosophy. Born in 1723 in Scotland, Smith is most famous for his 1776 book, The Wealth of Nations, which reflects upon the economics at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. The book covers a wide range of issues including division of labor, productivity, and free markets. Adam Smith is famously known as the father of economics. However, we can argue the fact that most of the theories and principles in economics introduced by Smith had been invented earlier by Muslim scholars. One of them is Ibn Khaldun, one of the most respected historian, sociologist, and philosopher who has been known as the founder of modern disciplines of historiography, sociology, economics, and demography. This documentary is focusing on the comparative study between Adam Smith and Muslim scholars of jurisprudence.
The question is, how Adam Smith contradicts with Muslim scholars on market mechanism?
Both Adam Smith and Muslim scholars all support the theory of free market in economic activities, but the distinguish is the approach and the purpose. In terms of Adam Smith's view, free market should be opposed to direct interference from the government in economic activity, which can damage the balance of the market. He promotes the concept of invisible hand, which an individual has the freedom to make decisions or choices based on their best interests, such as the seller can determine or set the price by themselves, and the buyer have freedom to purchase goods or services to fulfill their need. We can notice that the market mechanism in Adam Smith's thought is only on the power of supply and market demand, and his purpose is to achieve the happiness in the worldly life. However, in Muslim scholars' perspective, they also build support on free market, or we can say that perfect competitive market, but with minimum intervention of the outside force. Islamic promote the concept of maslahah, or public interest, which define as promote something useful and remove something harmful in the society. Some Muslim scholars state the market mechanism is not only demand and supply, but include the factor of goods intervention, and another one is based on the behavior of the market player, which they act as a fair or unfair in the market. Lastly, the more important thing is all economic activity should be under the frame of Sharia to achieve the falah, which is benefit in here and hereafter.
Next question. How the concept of price according to Adam Smith and Muslim scholars? Ibn Taymiyyah said the fluctuation of price in the market are influenced due to strong demand and supply, and not just because of unfair action of some party who involved in the transaction. However, he reminded the significance of fair price in market. He said fair price ijra albi should be worth the price of goods or services where individuals offer the goods, and the price also should generally be accepted as equivalent with the merchandise that will be sold. Similarly to Ibn Khaldun, the power law of demand and supply in the market is based on the price mechanism. He discussed the contrast in price for labor in numerous areas and attributes the difference in composition of contrast within the stage of development of the regions. That is, when the demand for product increase due to increase of population and thus expand prosperity, the composition of those that give this product price to increase. From perspective Adam Smith, he examines the concept of price and market by presenting the thought of natural price. He says natural price is the center or long-run price for market price move or derivatives. It is the cost that exists within the absence of unfair influence. The cost of production has been based on it, and it is in the long price run. In a society, there are a free hand where everybody is free to deliver what he wants and trade what he likes. While for the market price, it has been observed for short-run price, which is market price will be affected due to change in demand and supply, and also other random variables. As you can see, the theory of price proposed by Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Khaldun is almost similar like that which has been formulated by Adam Smith, the modern economist. The only contra is the prominence of morals and ethics. Ibn Taymiyyah and Adam Smith admit that government should not interfere in the price market and allow it happen naturally without distraction of any part. Ibn Taymiyyah said a seller should earn just a profit in acceptable manner, al-bayt al-ma'ruf, without deceiving the people. However, Ibn Taymiyyah prescribed that the government should require measures or supervision of the showcase caused within the occasion of fraud or any unsettling influence that lead to expand the price. Price which happen is not because of the quality of demand and supply, but because of the exploitation and manipulation or act of injustice.
Next, what are the similarity and contrast between Muslim scholars and Adam Smith towards the labor theory of value and the industry level?
Labor theory of value is to explain why goods were exchanged for certain relation prices on market. In this theory of value, it explains how Adam Smith and Ibn Khaldun perceptions and ideas about the labor theory of value under industry level. Khaldun analyzed the importance of division of labor under the industry level when he says the phrase about dividing the whole job of production will brings the different value of individuals. For instance, the person who is carving for chairs and closets that they need to shape the pieces of planks or wood in borer, and then one puts these pieces together. This statement shows that how the division process in the making of product based on wood by different individuals can increase the quality of product. Similarly, the example that exhibits by Khaldun almost same with Adam Smith, as he shows about pin factory, which is when one man draws the wire, so another person should straighten it. This exhibits that Smith looked at the important side of division of labor under industry level as well. However, in this concept, Adam Smith determined that from the phrase about pin factory, it is alright if not generalizing the labor who is performed in doing the task, as well as not necessary to educate them with the skills in process of work. Otherwise, Khaldun says that the division of process to make the furniture is defined by the division of process or employment into parts of each worker. This shows how labor theory of value under industry level have both similarity and comparison perspective between Adam Smith and Ibn Khaldun.
Next, international trade is also one of the vital indicators that may indicate economic performance of nations. Adam Smith, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, also mentioned that international trade is advantageous for nations because it gives a value to their superfluities by exchanging them for something else, which may satisfy a part of their wants and increase their enjoyment. Even Muslim scholars like Ibn Khaldun believe that it can offer opulent living circumstances and customs, as well as to meet the demands of residents in other places.
Therefore, this brings to the next question: how do both Adam Smith and Muslim scholars view international trade, and why it is important for economic growth?
Both Adam Smith and Muslim scholars agree that cooperation is vital to achieve international trade, and thus international trade can lead to achieve economic growth and development of nations. Ibn Khaldun views that if laborers can trade with residents from other cities as a result of the surplus good, it means that this occasion comes from great cooperation, while Smith mentioned later that cooperation is an important trait for nations to benefit from the trading. as both perspectives agree that specialization and divisions of labor can advantage in terms of transferring knowledge to each other, and thus productivity growth is achieved. However, Smith is more likely to be selective in terms of which country can give a huge return, and this explains why he concerned for Great Britain to do free trading with France rather than Portugal. This principle is totally contrast to the view of Islamic perspective, in which emphasized the inclusivity in achieving prosperity. Muslim scholars emphasize the responsibility to also help the poor, so that every demand of human being may be fulfilled.
Next, let's discuss the question of what are the principles that Muslim scholars and Adam Smith hold on towards the role of government on taxation. We must know that taxation is one of the roles of government that must be done to make sure the people can live in prosperity. As we all know, taxes are imposed by the government to gain tax revenues so that the government can spend it for investments and development of the state. For Islamic state, tax is permissible if the revenues for the government expenditures are inadequate but under certain situations and conditions. To start, let's see how Adam Smith explicates his principles on taxation. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith introduces the four canons of taxation, which are fairness between tax and income, certainty between collector and payee, convenience in collection and payment, and efficiency in collection costs. From all the four canons of taxation, it can be said that Smith is concerned over poverty and inequality of wealth and income. On the other hand, Ibn Khaldun, an Islamic scholar, has his own principles on taxation. Ibn Khaldun highlighted equity and efficiency, justice and neutrality, and the ability to pay, economy, benefit, and convenience principles. The core of his taxation theory is reducing the number of individual imposed levy on those who can engage in social activities as much as feasible. He also indicates that low tax rate will help business to grow and increase the tax revenues. And lastly, Ibn Khaldun reminds the government to be legitimate in imposing tax and using the tax money. To conclude, both Ibn Khaldun and Adam Smith share the same views on the principles of taxation, but using different terms, as the principles still concern about the people. However, Ibn Khaldun relates tax with government expenditure, as he said that the income and expenditure must be balanced. Ibn Khaldun also hinders the government to spend its revenue lavishly on unnecessary things. Therefore, we can see that both of the taxation theory from Adam Smith and Ibn Khaldun can be exemplified and applied positively in this progressive era.
In conclusion, this comparative study shows how important of education for economic, and without achieving SDG number 4, quality education, some people will never be exposed and differentiate finding and theory that been proposed between Adam Smith and Muslim scholars. Besides, it also plays a vital role for the people, especially for a government, to maintain and achieve decent work and economic growth for the country as linked with SDG number 8. However, this may not be the best guideline for certain countries' growth approach, but to highlight on the way the economy works, whether the country practices conventional or Islamic system. Last but not least, this also not to downgrade the ideology of a particular scholar, but to emphasize the understanding, especially on fund components that have been discussed. Ideas from both Western and Islamic scholars may be integrated for a country to achieve decent work and economic growth. That's all from us. Thank you.